I saw him the moment I stepped inside. Not because he was loud, quite the opposite. He stood off to the side near the windows, glass of something amber in his hand, expression unreadable. The type of guy who didn't need to announce himself to be noticed. That's what made me notice him. He had that careless kind of appeal. Rolled up sleeves, stubble a shade too long to be intentional, and a restlessness in his eyes like he was already tired of the party. But when our eyes met, even across the noise and bodies, something in him changed. Just slightly. Like he hadn't expected me to look back. I let the moment stretch, then turned away pretending I hadn't felt that jolt. But my skin was already betraying me. The flush along my collarbone, the way the wine glass felt too heavy in my hand. He was younger. Obviously. Maybe late 20s. Maybe barely 30. And I was pushing 38 and carrying a divorce like a ghost on my back. I wasn't here for this. I was here to breathe, to laugh too loudly with friends, to pretend I wasn't bone-deep lonely in a room full of people. And yet I kept catching his gaze. Always just a second too long. Always looking away first, like he didn't trust himself. Neither did I. But I moved closer. Fully. Letting the music pull me across the room like a tide I didn't bother fighting. Laughed at a joke I only half heard. Tipped my chin in a way I knew exposed the line of my neck. I was dancing the edge and he was watching every step. By the time midnight hit, I needed air. Or maybe I needed something else entirely. He followed me out to the terrace. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. The night air wrapped around my bare shoulders, sharp with the kind of October chill Los Angeles only gets when the desert finally gives up pretending it's summer. But I didn't feel cold. Not with his presence just behind me, heavy, quiet, waiting. Didn't peg you as a smoker, he said finally, voice smooth but tentative. I held up the cigarette I'd found in someone's coat pocket. I'm not. He smiled. Got that smile. It wasn't cocky. It was curious. Like he was still trying to figure out if I was real. You got a light? I asked, turning to face him. He fumbled a little, pulling it from his pocket. When he handed it over, his fingers brushed mine. A spark. No, a warning. I lit the cigarette, inhaled out of habit, not desire, and exhaled slowly, deliberately, watching his eyes follow the smoke. He looked like he wanted to say something else. But his mouth stayed half open, uncertain. So I said it for him. You always follow strangers onto balconies? He leaned against the railing, glancing at me sidelong. Only the interesting ones. My smile curved slow and deliberate. Flattery works better when it doesn't sound like a line. It wasn't. I stepped closer. Close enough to see the pulse jump in his throat. Close enough to smell cedar and something faintly citrus on his skin. What's your name? I asked. Caleb. Monica. He said it like he was tasting it. The silence after that was rich. Not awkward. Just loaded. I turned my back to him, leaning forward slightly on the edge of the rail, letting my dress stretch just enough over my hips to make a statement. I didn't need to look to know he was staring. He stepped closer. I felt the heat of him behind me. Not touching. Just hovering. When I straightened and turned, we were chest to chest. His breath hitched. His hands twitched, then slowly rose, tentative, until his fingers grazed the fabric at my waist. I didn't stop him. His thumb slipped beneath the hem, barely touching skin. A breathless question. My answer? I leaned in and kissed him, slow, purposeful, heat curling around my spine. He responded like a man starved, hungry, hesitant, a little unpolished, but honest in a way that made me ache. His hands found my lower back, steadying, then exploring, palms pressed flat against the shape of me like he was trying to memorize it. The city flickered behind us, all lights in motion and meaninglessness, while we stood there like a spark about to catch. When I finally pulled back, breathless, his forehead rested against mine. This is trouble, I murmured. I know, he whispered back. And still neither of us moved. By the time we reached my place, the city felt like a different planet. We didn't talk much on the drive. Just exchanged glances that said more than words ever could. My pulse drummed under my skin, and every time his knee brushed mine at a red light, I felt it like lightning. The moment I unlocked my apartment door, something shifted. The tension that had simmered all night broke like glass. Caleb stepped in behind me, barely hesitating. His eyes roamed the room. Couch, kitchen, candles on the shelf. But they landed on me like I was the only thing worth remembering. He hovered in the doorway like he didn't know what to do with his hands. So I showed him. I stepped closer, took his hand and placed it on my hip. Here, I whispered, is where you start. His breath caught. Not because he was unsure, but because I'd taken the lead. I could feel the pulse in his palm as I guided it slowly up the curve of my side. His fingers were warm, tentative, and when he finally leaned in to kiss me again, it wasn't rushed. It was reverent, as if the weight of the moment had sunk in. I backed toward the bedroom without looking behind me, pulling him with me by his belt loop. He followed, obedient and burning. The room was lit only by the gold haze of streetlight slipping through half-closed blinds. It painted thin stripes across the sheets and the walls, turning our skin into sculpture. I slipped my dress over my head in one motion. His eyes widened, not with lust but awe. It had been a long time since anyone looked at me like that. Like I was something more than a body. Like I was a moment. He reached out, tracing the edge of my shoulder with a trembling finger. He started, then stopped. I smiled, stepping close enough for our bodies to align. No need to finish that. I kissed the hollow of his throat, feeling the thrum of his heartbeat against my lips. His hands slid along my back, unsure but eager. Bernie. I slowed him down. Took his hand. Pressed his palm flat against my stomach, then up. Feel me, I said. Don't rush. He didn't. His touch was careful. Almost reverent. As if he understood that this wasn't just about hunger. It was about waking something we both thought had been put to rest. I pressed him back onto the bed, straddling him slowly, letting the tension stretch thin and delicious between us. He watched me, chest rising and falling, fingers twitching against the sheets like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to touch. He was. And when I leaned down and kissed him again, open, slow, deep, he responded with a low groan that made my toes curl. It wasn't just the kiss. It was the way his body moved under mine, the way he followed my rhythm, the way he adjusted without being told. A quick study. A willing one. His lips moved down my neck, his hands finally bolder. Exploring. Craving. I let him learn me. Let him listen not with ears but with fingertips. Every gasp, every shift, every arch of my back answering his questions. When he slid into me, there was no rush. Only the sound of skin and breath, of whispered names and bitten lips. Of two people trying to lose themselves in each other, if only for one night. Afterwards we lay tangled in each other. Sweat cooling on our skin, silence heavy but not uncomfortable. He traced the line of my ribcage like he was trying to write something there. I didn't stop him. Because for once, it felt good to be touched without expectation. To be wanted without a catch. I should have told him not to stay. Should have drawn a line. But when he kissed my shoulder and murmured, "Monica," like it was more than just my name, I didn't correct him. I closed my eyes and let the moment stretch. Even if it wasn't built to last. Sunlight cut through the blinds in clean golden lines, slicing the dark in half, falling across the tangle of rumpled sheets. I woke to the weight of his arm draped over my waist, his chest warm against my back. His breathing was steady, slow, and for a terrifying second it felt normal. Like I'd done this before. Like waking up next to him was just a Tuesday. But it wasn't. Reality came back like cold water. The party, the balcony, the way his mouth found mine like we were both drowning. The way I let him in without hesitation like I needed to feel something more than the echo of my own skin. I slipped from under his arm carefully, trying not to wake him. The moment the blanket left my body, the chill hit me, not just from the room but from the sudden distance between our heat and the morning. I padded into the kitchen, the tile cool under my feet. Poured coffee with hands that weren't quite steady. It had been a long time since anyone looked at me like that, like I was all of it. Fire, gravity, storm. I wasn't used to being seen anymore. Not after the divorce. Not after the quiet years. But Caleb had looked. Really looked. And that was the problem. I could still feel his hands. The way they'd hesitated at first, then learned. The way he'd whispered my name like it wasn't just a sound but a reason. And I hated how much I didn't want that feeling to go. A floorboard creaked behind me. I didn't have to turn to know it was him. "Found this," he said, voice still scratchy with sleep, holding up my silk robe from the floor. His bare chest caught the light. His hair a little messy, lips still kissed raw. I turned slowly. "Thanks." When I reached to take it from him, our fingers brushed. Too long. Too deliberate. Neither of us let go right away. He looked at me, not with lust, not even with affection, but with something softer. Something more dangerous. His eyes searched my face like he was trying to find the version of me that had kissed him like she meant it. And maybe I was trying to hide her. I should go, he said eventually. But he didn't move. I handed him a mug instead. Coffee. He took it. Our fingers touched again. That was the third time in 30 seconds and not a single one felt accidental. Monica, he started. I knew that tone. The I'd like to see you again tone. The maybe this wasn't just one night tone. I didn't let him finish. Because I wasn't ready for the question. And I definitely wasn't ready for my answer. So instead I kissed him again, slow and quiet, not hungry this time but grateful. He kissed me back with the same softness. The robe slipped from my hand and pooled at our feet. The coffee went cold on the counter. The next few days passed like they always do. Work, errands, traffic that made me question why I ever stayed in LA. But nothing felt the same. Not the grocery store playlist, not my reflection in the elevator mirror, not even the silence in my apartment. It was like I'd left part of myself somewhere, or maybe I'd let something new in and now it wouldn't stop echoing. I didn't reach out. Neither did he. But that didn't mean I didn't think about it. Every time my phone lit up, some part of me hoped it was him. I'd stare at the screen, disappointed by a work email or my sister's half-hearted memes. And then on Thursday night, 3 days after our night, he texted, "Did I leave my lighter at your place? Or was that just an excuse to see you again?" I stared at the message longer than I'd admit. And then typed back, "Maybe both." The dots appeared. Then stopped. Then reappeared. "Can I return the favor? You gave me more than a night, Monica. You gave me something I didn't know I needed." I read the message 3 times, the air suddenly too thick in my lungs. This wasn't just flirtation anymore. This was real. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I poured a glass of wine and sat on the couch, the same one where I'd pressed my mouth against his collarbone and heard him whisper my name like it was the last thing he'd ever say. My phone buzzed again. "I haven't stopped thinking about you. Or the way you looked at me like I mattered." I swallowed hard. Because I had looked at him that way. Because for one night he did matter. Because I hadn't felt that open, that seen in a long time. I typed slowly, "Come over. No wine. No games. Just you." He arrived 20 minutes later. No pretense this time. No party. No dress or heels or lipstick armor. Just me in a soft t-shirt and bare feet. Just him in jeans and a nervous smile. We stood there at the threshold for a moment like we were deciding whether we'd start again, or continue what never really ended. Then I reached for his hand and pulled him in. This time it was different. Softer. Slower. Not out of caution, but out of reverence. We didn't race to the bedroom. We sat on the couch, legs touching, talking low. About music and books and why he never liked birthdays. He told me about his mom, how she left when he was 8. About the silence that followed. How he learned to fill it with distractions, then with women, but never with anything that really stuck. I told him I knew the feeling. Different shape. Same ache. And when I finally kissed him, again, it wasn't about release. It was about connection. His hands moved over me like he'd been waiting to do it right. No fumbling this time. No rush. Just skin and breath and the quiet unraveling of something more dangerous than lust. Trust. I let him undress me like he was unwrapping something fragile. Not because I was delicate, but because he understood now that I wasn't just a body to hold for the night. And when we moved together, it wasn't about forgetting. It was about remembering who I was, what I still had to give. After we didn't talk. Just lay there in the quiet, his head on my chest, my fingers tracing lazy circles along his shoulder blade. I should have been afraid of what this meant. What came next. But for the first time in years I wasn't. Morning came slow. The kind of morning where time doesn't exist. Where blinds don't get opened. Where skin sticks to skin in the warmth of something unfinished. Caleb was still asleep, one arm draped across my waist, his face buried in the crook of my neck. His breath was steady. Familiar. I watched the dust dance in the sunlight for a long time before moving. Not because I wanted to leave. But because I didn't know what staying would mean. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him. Threw on one of his shirts. He'd left it the first night and walked barefoot to the kitchen. Everything looked the same. Same fridge magnets. Same coffee maker. Same cracks in the countertop I swore I'd fix someday. And yet nothing felt the same. Because now there was a man asleep in my bed who had seen more of me in 5 days than most had in 5 years. Not just naked, but real. Vulnerable in ways I hadn't allowed myself to be since before the marriage, before the divorce, before the ache of being unwanted had taken root. No. I wasn't sure what to do with the wanting again. He came into the kitchen 15 minutes later, hair messy, eyes still heavy with sleep. I handed him a mug wordlessly. He took it, our fingers brushing like always. But this time he didn't let go. You always this quiet in the morning? He asked softly. Only when I'm thinking, I said. About. I hesitated, then told the truth. About how this was supposed to be one night. His eyes searched mine. And now? I don't know, I admitted. He stepped closer. Because you're afraid of what this could be, or because you already know what it is. I looked away. Monica, he said, his voice firmer now. I don't want to be another memory you bury. That's not fair, I whispered. Maybe. But it's honest. I looked up at him. Really looked. He was young. Too young maybe. But the way he looked at me, grounded, steady, made me feel like I was the one still figuring things out. I don't know if I'm built for this again, I admitted. For more. I'm not asking for forever, he said. I'm just asking if we can keep seeing each other. Without pretending it didn't mean something. I stared at him. At his certainty. At how calm he made chaos feel. And slowly I nodded. Okay. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. He leaned in, brushed his lips against mine, not possessive, not rushed. Just there. Present. I kissed him back. Because despite everything I told myself, this meant something. Maybe it always had. Later, after he left, I sat on the edge of the bed, still wrapped in his scent. The apartment was quiet again. But it didn't feel empty. Because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The quiet kind. The kind you don't post about. The kind that blooms slow like trust. Like hope.